All right, Edwin. So thanks for being here. We're just talking about your Letterman appearance. What did you learn? What did you learn there?
I learned that even in the moment of total fear and terror, that you can get through your 3.5-minute song without a mistake and move to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like, I remember finishing the song, and then I went to the side of the stage, and the tour manager was there, and I was like, did that go okay? Like a total panic. But yeah, that was a. And then after that, everything was easy because it was just the sheer terror of knowing you're going on television for the first time in front of 10 million people. And then after that, like, what could happen now?
Right.
That's scary. Nothing.
So that's the example of a boundary you expanded, and now everything's below that.
And also a good lesson in there is no finish line.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be some other thing, and the value of these moments are really internal and what you've placed on it, because there was a whole bunch of people that didn't give a rip that I was on that show. Couldn't have cared any less about it, right? And like, to me, it was the most monumental moment of my entire life. But there was a Buddhist monk in India that couldn't have given less of a crap about that reality.
True.
So it really is. It's like, how do you build these things up, these moments up in your own mind, and do you put too much weight on them to the point where it's detrimental to your performance? Right. So that was a good lesson. Like, don't freak yourself out. Just go out and execute. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who it's in front of. And so that the other part of that is now if I walk into a room that's half full or less than half full, I'm putting on the exact same performance that I would, because it doesn't matter what I think.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's pretty cool, Letterman. Anyway, for the audience out there, I think everyone knows Edwin McCain. Edwin become a legit rock star. Let's just put it that way. And he's had the #1 records, and of course, "I'll Be," most famous wedding song I think in the history of the world.
God, the hit that keeps on giving.
You got to love it, don't you?
25 years. Yeah, it's 25 years old, and it's going into a J-Lo movie right now. Like, who knew?
That's beautiful.
That's great.
So what most people don't know about Edwin, and this goes for other professions as well, is I think a lot of people would say, if you're in high school, I'd like to one day be a very successful rock star. That would be cool. But understanding how you get there, how you go from, let's just say an inauspicious beginning to where he is now, and how much of it is related to selling and persistence and grinding. And I'll also say, I want to ask you about this, but also, management, because you manage your businesses, including your band, and you've got people in your band that have been with you how long?
30. The longest is 33 years.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Craig and I have been together for 33 years.
So isn't that kind of unheard of?
Yeah, it's loyalty in the music business is expensive, right? And so a lot of people just, like, every time the tour's over, they go, "Okay, see you later, guys," and then the next tour they hire a different band. And that always felt weird to me, because I feel like, and I believe this, that the currency in this world is the relationships that you build, and money comes and goes, but your friendships are the true wealth.
Yeah.
And I think there's an honor in providing a vehicle for people to make a living and have their families, and you participate in everyone having a good life.
Right.
And I take way more pride in that than owning a helicopter.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But I think that's a choice that everybody has to make. So there's two different sides of that coin. It's not that this is just the path I chose, right? It's not that other way is invalid.
Right.
That's just how other people look. Kid Rock can do whatever he wants, right? And it's none of my business how he spends his money. I just have the same band.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
pretty cool. It's good for the music too.
Well, it's good for the music, in that there is that unspoken language where you don't have to rehearse anything anymore. You know exactly where somebody's going. You know the way they think, and you know that in whatever musical moment, you know what their tendencies are, and everybody follows it. And then sometimes it's different and it's a surprise.
Yeah.
But it makes for a lot less rehearsals.
Yeah.
Which I'm all a fan of. I want everything to be a surprise.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. I like it. Well, if we back it on down to the beginning, the first time I picked up that you were interested in this field was, I think, in college, but you'd played a little bit in high school?
Yeah, I was in some high school bands, but I was in church choir as a kid because it's always sort of I had a hard time reading in elementary school. I was dyslexic. I wrote backwards, and so school was extremely difficult, but I could sing. And singing, and I remember being a kid, I was like, well, adults seem to like it when I sing, so let's do this.
Yes,
like, let's be good at this, because math is out.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, clearly that's not working. So music has always sort of been saving me from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was in bands in high school, and then the day I was leaving for college, my dad made me swear to him that I was not going to be a musician.
Right.
Because he had a premonition nightmare that I had long hair and I was riding around the country playing music, riding around in a van.
Yeah.
I mean, how clairvoyant, right?
It's
And
unbelievable.
he made me swear to him. And so I left my guitar in Greenville and went off to college, went off to ill-fated college endeavor. And I remember it, I was at a college party and somebody had a guitar there, and I picked up a guitar and played half of a John Cougar song, and some girl that was way out of my league got interested, and I was like, well, why are we not doing this?
Yeah,
Like,
really.
This is,
Yeah.
And fast forward to a moment where I had gotten in a car wreck and I had to pay to fix the car, and I already had a job cooking pizzas, but I needed to make some extra money. And so I started busking on the street, and then got a job playing, the manager of this restaurant in front of the place I was busking came out and said, hey, look, can you play here 3 nights a week? I'll pay you $75 and feed you. And I dropped out of college the next day. I was like, I'm rich.
You don't need it. You don't need college. Yeah.
So I think part of it too, you just got to be foolish enough when you're young to just barge into it, right? Without any fear of failure, because when you're 18, you can fail 1,000 times. And everybody's afraid of looking silly. By then, I had made every mistake. I have looked as ridiculous as any human being could look in a number of settings. So I didn't fear embarrassment at that point. So what's left?
Yeah.
Let's just go and try. And I say this to my kids, like, from between 20 and 35 is when you're not allowed to be embarrassed and you're not allowed to stop grinding. Like those 15 years are the grinding years, and you should not be distracted from whatever it is you're trying to achieve by anything, because at 35, then you can spend all your time like kite surfing and doing whatever and being in your relationships and having your families. But from 20 to 35, strap on the JATO rockets, put your head down and grind.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree. I think that's where you kind of have your chance to set the rest of your life up. And the older you get, the harder it gets to change that trajectory. But I agree with you.
I've seen it done the other way. I have a cousin who was just like a big paddler, and he took his 20s and just like was a river rat and hung out.
Yeah.
And he's become an entrepreneur in his 40s and 50s. But he doesn't have a family either. Like he's in a relationship, but he doesn't have the other part of that story, right? Yeah. And that was a choice. So it's not invalid. I mean, it's definitely a choice, but it just, in my estimation, from an energy standpoint, from what you're capable of achieving from 20 to 35, man, you've got unlimited energy and focus that can be applied to do huge things.
Yeah. And less baggage, right?
And less baggage.
Yeah.
And societally, you're given a pass for failures because if you're doing it right, there's someone mentoring you through those. And as a 20-year-old, you can make a huge mistake and the adults around you are like, yeah, I made that mistake.
Yeah.
You know, pick yourself up, Pat,
Yeah.
dust yourself off. But when you're in your 40s and you're making those same mistakes, people aren't as kind, right? They're like, you should have known better.
Kind of give
You know
up,
what I mean?
give
Like,
up on you a little
you
bit.
You don't get that.
Yeah.
You don't get, you're like,
Yeah.
You're afforded more mistakes.
Yeah.
And you're also afforded more guidance.
Yeah.
Because in that area, in that period of time when I was young, I didn't know any better. I was 18. I went and bought an old bus. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how to drive it. I walked into a bus company in North Charleston, introduced myself to the owner, this guy named Charles, and I was like, I don't know how to drive a bus, and I need someone to teach me. And he said, like anybody that's had a successful career, he looks at this 18-year-old kid and went, sure.
Yeah.
And he spent months with me teaching me about whatever. And he did it because I asked. And he also did it because I was 18 and asked. Now, if I had been a 40-year-old and walked in there, he'd probably run me out of there. But there is a component of stewardship that is afforded young people that should be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you're missing one of the critical components of success. Your ability to achieve in life is in direct relation to your ability to ask for help.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Early.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like now, I mean,
Yeah.
hey man, I need you. Hi, dude. Like, can you imagine me walking in someplace now? Like, hey, you don't know.
You could probably still get away with it. Most people can't. But that's a good point for the noobs anyway, is just to ask often and not to fear rejection, because you will occasionally get, rejected. People won't have time for you or something, but more times than not, people want to help.
Yeah. Way more times.
Yeah.
And your ask is an affirmation of their expertise. So it's flattering to be considered a source of information that's needed.
Yeah.
And I think that's and the other part of this story too is that when I understood how the music industry worked, and I have to get past the program directors, the gatekeepers. Well, the artists hardly ever call the program directors, right? They have a whole staff of people with the record company that call. Well, that's crazy. I'm going to call this guy. Is he going to tell me no to my face?
Yeah.
A lot of them did.
Yeah.
But then I would call them back, and they just it was an okay space to be in, to be obnoxious, persistent to the point of humor, right? Like, look, man, I'm not going to stop calling. This is all I got, right? I'm not going back to the pizza place. So you either start playing this song or we just become friends because we talk on the phone every week.
Yeah.
Right? There's two ways this is going,
Yeah.
right?
And these were radio stations?
These are radio stations across the country. And I had a spiral notebook. I would get up at 8 o'clock every morning.
Yeah.
And I had my list of guys. Last time I called, where he was on the yes, no, maybe, what we talked about, what his kids' names are, blah, 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 and every one of them was different.
Yeah.
And some of them I'm friends, like to this day. Like there's a guy named John Ivey, and he's the program director for the biggest station in Boston, but he wasn't originally. He was just a little guy in, Podunk, Massachusetts. But recently, when I did the anthem for the Patriots, when I finished it, I sent him a text and I said, John, it's not lost on me that me sitting out here singing the anthem at the AFC Championship game is partially because you answered the phone and played my song.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
And he texted right back, right? And I haven't had any business with him in 15 years. But that's the relationship, right?
Yeah.
So you honor the relationships and that's why you have a fulfilling career. It's not what you've achieved, it's the fact that you get to share all those successes with the people that were components of it. And still friends with Diane and Cecil Crowley, who gave me my first really good gig in Hilton Head, Wild Wing Cafe.
Wild Wing, yeah.
And a lot of people would say, well, it's just a wing joint. No, it isn't. They're family. Their business grew.
Yeah.
We grew along together. We're still close. You know, the persistence part of it is the genesis of lifelong friendships, right? Because everyone respects persistence. Everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know? I mean, even if it's annoying.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'll tell you, I work with this kid, Taylor Moore, and I primarily work with him because he wrote me a letter, and it was funny, and we've been friends ever since. But he spent the time handwriting me a letter and putting a stamp on it. And people don't understand the value of a handwritten note.
You probably got one of those, right?
He's the one.
Yeah.
He's the only one.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And it really is. It's all these seemingly insignificant things that get overlooked that can be the key.
Yeah.
But consistently across the board, and one of these things is going to land. One of these things is going to flip that switch that opens the door that begins a new trajectory.
Yeah.
And you don't know. So you got to play to the room of 10 people the same way you're going to play to the showcase for the record label president. You don't know who's in that audience.
That's right.
You don't have a clue. You don't know who's at this business dinner. You don't know who's at this cocktail party, who you're networking with. You don't know who's going to be a potential ally.
Yeah.
And you have to be persistent and consistent.
So one of the things, Edwin, that you did very well, or maybe you got fortunate, is that you picked your passion and your direction early in life. So maybe when you were a freshman in college, maybe that's when it happened with the girl or the pizza place or whatever it was. And then you started tearing down that road, where you would sleep over at Dan's house if you had to, or busk on the street. But like the bare minimum, but you were going in that direction. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you is, you picked that early. We try to teach the noobs to try to help them figure out how they can find their thing. And I think that's one of the biggest opportunities we have is people trying to help, is helping them figure, because if it doesn't come to you, in the pizza shop or wherever it was, how are you going to figure it out? How are you going to end up not just doing whatever job you happen to get for the rest of your life?
What's that thing you think about for the last 30 minutes before you fall asleep at night? Like, what is that? What's the daydream? That's usually what it is. Like, what's that perfect future that you imagine for yourself quietly when no one else is around?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And if you have an internal critic that's going, you can never have that, then you gotta learn how to squelch that and flip the script to the word to world model. So and it's the oldest trick in the book. It's the fake it till you make it. People would ask, how are things going? It's amazing. You can't tell people how amazing things are going, whether it is or not, because even your detractors are going to walk away from you going, can you believe what he just said? He said his world's going amazing. But guess what happened? They just repeated what you said. So the more you speak that, your words become everyone else's report of how you're doing. But if you go out there and bellyache about how this gig didn't work out and that thing's going wrong.
Economy's terrible.
Oh,
inflation.
God. Yeah, no,
inflation.
it's a disaster. Yeah. And it doesn't help your your mindset,
Right.
right? You really, you almost have to fool yourself in a way.
You got to run the ad.
You just run it in.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're not operating under those parameters, because we're really, what you have going on between your ears is a simulation. So what simulation are you running? Are you running the one where you win?
Right.
Or are we running the one where everything sucks?
Yeah.
Right?
Do you have, I mean, you're a super positive guy, but do you have a morning affirmation thing you go through?
I do gratitude lists occasionally, but I'm not, I trend, I'm not a positive person. Like I trend, I have impostor syndrome bad. Like I thought I had a chronic case of oppositional defiance until the last 2 years has proven that I'm not anywhere near the way the rest of the world is. Like I have a pushback. Like I have like if something comes my way and it's something that I should be doing, I'm not doing that. Right? You know what I mean? Because part of what made me do what I do is because it was like something that, well, you can't do that, right? Like, I'm definitely doing it now.
Nobody does that.
So I have to sort of trick myself into thinking like the things I should do are the things nobody thinks I can do.
Yeah.
And then that way I get defiant about pulling it off. But I have a like case in point, Yellowstone, right? Everyone loves that. I refuse to watch an episode because of that. Like that's the kind of dicky mindset I have. I'll eventually, like in 3 years, once everybody's moved on to it, I'll secretly go back and enjoy the hell out of it. But right now, like I'm not going to see Maverick.
No.
Nope. Everybody's there, right? You know, just it's a character flaw. I don't know. I own the fact that it's like that, and I see it's genetic because I have my son. He is exactly like, he has the same thing. I know, and I don't know where it comes from, but being aware of it, it's less detrimental.
It probably helped you get in the music business.
It helps me in the music business, but it also helps me with writing because I don't want to write the same stuff. I don't want to write fiction.
Yeah. I
want to live long enough to have something I give a shit about enough to write it.
Yeah.
And then you know, it helps and hurts. It goes back. I have, you know, my saying, the thing that makes you powerful is the thing that can also kill you. Like it's 100% true. Whatever the part of your personality that makes you really powerful and effective is also your biggest liability, and you got to know where that balance lies.
Yeah.
And I've learned that. You know, I learned that the hard way too. So.
Well, backing up a little bit, I mean, obviously, I have to tell a story about the Tiki Hut. So the Tiki Hut was before your big break when you got Wild Wings. Okay,
yeah, it was.
This was before that. So I didn't even know you were playing guitar, and I was down at Hilton Head and snuck away from the family and went to this little outdoor bar, the Tiki Hut on the beach, and heard this beautiful music. And I come around the corner, and there's young Edwin,
there I am.
19 or 20. And I'm so dumb that I'm like, holy cow. And I walked up and like put my, Edwin, it's John. And you were singing.
I was
and
busy with
you kind of
guitar.
stopped and shook my hand and said hello. And gave me this look like, Jesus. And then you started back playing. But yeah, I was wondering how many of your 10,000 hours you got at that Tiki Hut.
So the first summer that I moved to Hilton Head, like, and I didn't know that you weren't supposed to play 10 shows a week. So I was like, well, how many shows can I play in a week? Because they're paying me.
Yeah.
And all of these are 4-hour gigs, right? And so I literally played 3 on Saturdays.
Yeah.
I played 12 to 4 at the Tiki Hut. 6 to 10 at Sneakers out on the Hilton Head Beach and Tennis, and then 10:30 to 1:30 at Zach's. And it was 2 audiences that aren't really interested in listening to you, right? They're except for Zach's. Zach's, by then everybody's so drunk they're into it, but But, you know, trying to entertain a deck full of tourists it's a hostile sell, right? So you really have to figure out how to entertain people that aren't really all that interested in being entertained.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then what audience are you really going to be afraid of? Right? And once you cross over into the part of the music business where people actually showed up specifically to hear you,
They're going to like it.
yeah, how
Yeah.
current Motley Crue tour being a perfect example. They'll let you get away with a lot just to see you.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was my Gladwellian 10,000 hours. But, you know, actually to that point, the timing can't be understated. Like the period of time where I was coming up as it relates to the music industry can't be understated. Like when I was is as important as what I was doing because we truly were in the perfect crosshairs of the end of grunge, the last 10 years of the big time music industry when there were still rivers of money flowing through that industry. It's about a third of what it was now, like as far as market share. So they had money to promote artists. I mean, they had money to take somebody like me, spend millions of dollars putting music and promoting me and giving me a name. And they don't have that anymore. Like now, if you're coming up now, you're expected to show up with that money and a finished product and marketable sales before a major will even touch you. Like, it's just a completely different world. Now, it is a meritocracy in that any dark horse with a great song can release it and connect, and then it's a scramble. Like now, you know, but it's changed significantly. You know.
So selling wise, I don't know the story, so I'm just asking it blind. But selling wise, how did you sell your way to being the opener for Hootie?
So at that time, I highly recommend this. You know, find somebody that you know that has a business degree to manage you that's your age, where you can go out there and hustle together. And so at that time, I had a guy named Rich Crabtree who I knew at college, and he was a shucker and a jiver, and so he loaned me the money to make my first record, and then obviously stayed on and managed me to protect his investment. And so the agreement was, look, you got to go make friends with their manager, Rusty, and I'll be friends with the band, and we will ingratiate ourselves enough with them to where we can go and open for them. And that was basically what we did. And now, you know, none of this is nefarious because all the Hootie guys knew what I was doing. You know, I just sucked up better than anybody else. And to that story, those guys basically took me with them on their ride. Like they told the Atlantic people, look, yeah, we'll sign the deal, but you got to sign him too. And I think that kind of friendship in the music industry is rare, but they were incredibly kind to bring me along. And Darius sang on my first single, and you know, I always make a point in every show to tell this story because they, you know, I spend my whole life trying to repay them for that. But they also set a really good standard because they never took themselves very seriously. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I wouldn't have. Like if I hadn't been around them and had a good sort of model of not taking this too seriously, I could have easily gone into Diamond David Lee Roth territory, like happily been, you know, rampant, like
leather pants,
maniac, crazy, and so it was a really good big brotherly thing for them
Yeah.
to experience the level of success they did and never take it too seriously, because I was always astonished by that. Like, and I remember the first time it dawned on me, we were on tour playing stadiums, and we had a couple of days off, and we all went to play golf, and we were so naive to the amount of money they were generating. Like, we still shared hotel rooms. Like nobody thought, like, we have enough money not to have to share hotel rooms. We were all bunked up together in hotel rooms.
That's funny. Well, I mean, I'll say though, in your to your credit, you'd prepared yourself for that moment with all those hours, those 4 gigs or 10 gigs a week or whatever it was in Hilton Head, and you had a plan, with your business partner to make that happen. They didn't just come knocking on your door.
No, we planned, and we were hopeful that this was going to be the path. But I also knew what I didn't know, and I'm not a very good guitar player, and I knew that I was never going to be a very good guitar player. So I made sure that I hired a very good guitar player, and I knew that I wasn't going to be. I don't know how to read music. I'm not educated musically. So when the opportunity to have Craig join and be, this lifelong jazz wizard, it added credibility that I didn't have, right? So there were my weak points. I went looking for people to help me fill in my blind spots, so to speak. Yeah. And inadvertently with Craig, without him, none of this would have happened, right? I mean, he sort of, with him, I'm a complete functional human being. Yeah. Without him, I'm a used car salesman.
Well, I don't know about that, but he is pretty special.
Yeah. So, but that's it. So you establish those partnerships, and then you honor them and you respect them. Yeah. And then 30 something years go by, and you're still with those people, right? Yeah. And that's sort of. But I learned that from Cecil and Diane. They own, a wing restaurant, but they have people that have been working for them for 30 years, and that says a lot about them. Yeah. Right. And I think that's the goal, right? You want to have people that want to work with you. They want to spend their working lives with you because you're generous and you're. I say this delicately, but there has to be a benevolent dictator. You've run companies, right? There has to be one person that makes the final decisions. Now, that decision, if you're doing it right, the decision is based on all the input that's been carefully considered, and usually is not in my best interest, but in their best interest. And if you can establish that kind of relationship, then you can have people that are with you for 30 years.
I agree. Right. All right, I just have 2 more questions. The first one was tell us what you're working on now, where you're touring and.
I've been just taking a ton of time off to take my son to his lacrosse tournaments. Yeah. And I made a decision about 3 years ago just to dial it way back and spend time with my kids while they're still here in my house and make sure that whatever foundational information I have to give them is there before they leave. Yeah. And this because I look to you, we have long conversations about parenting because you've done an incredible job with yours and you're ahead of me in that. Yep. And so to me, making sure that I'm releasing good human beings into the world is way more important than playing gigs right now. Yeah. And that road will always be there. So I'll get back to that in a minute, but right now I'm spending time with kids, and I have a side business. It's a business of a grading business that we started, and I could do that full time. It is wide open. So there's a lot of wrench turning, dirt moving, big equipment stuff, and I love it. I enjoy it. It's so, but I've learned how to, like, you can't do any job without doing all of it. Like, so you can't be a musician without knowing how to fix the vehicle you're driving or, repair the amp that you're using. I mean, you got to know how to do all this stuff, and you got to like doing all this stuff, because it's not just about the hour and a half on stage. There's all the other stuff that goes into it. So in that process, I've learned how to just enjoy anything that I'm doing because of the novelty of it all, right? I've learned that if every day starts looking the same, I'm out. Like, there's no way. I was offered a role on a Broadway show, and I went and saw the show multiple times in a row, and it was exact.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way in the world I could do this Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Make it a movie, you'll do it. Do it once.
Right. And that was the thing when we did some television. Like, I learned very quickly how monotonous that was. I was like, I don't think I'll ever do that again.
Yeah.
Like, that's way too tedious.
Well, closing up, what about last words for the noobs? Any advice for salespeople to be?
God, I mean, I think if you respect the relationship first, all the other things will follow. If you learn how to have a good relationship with other people, if you're a good friend, then the rest of this stuff will come. I mean, it'll be a byproduct of being a good friend. Yeah. Right. And authenticity can't be faked. Yeah. That's the deal. And you look at this life in terms of relationships and not as outcomes.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, Edwin, thank you. I'm mighty fortunate that we're friends. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
Very good.